So MIA students, today we are going to do an activity that we are actually going to be completing a 1040 form. And again, a 1040 form is a form that Americans use to complete their federal income taxes. We are going to actually complete some 1040 forms. We will do one together, and then your assignment is going to be to complete this activity. And we'll talk about what completing the activity is going to look like in a second. But if you notice, this is what you'll get with the activity. There are different people, some personal information about them, their employment information, and then they attach these W-2s. And if I just click on a W-2, and I'm actually going to click on Melinda's because that's the 1040 we're going to complete. So I want to have that open. What a W-2 is, it's a form that your employer sends you usually they send it to you in January, and you need this W-2 form to complete your taxes. Basically, what a W-2 form is it tells you how much money you have made throughout that year, as well as how much money has gone to different taxes. So if you notice here, it will have your social security number on there, your identification number, your employee number, your employer's name and address, employee's social security, and then it has your name and address and those sorts of things. Just personal information over here. On the right hand side, for number 1, it talks about all your wages and tips that you had and how much federal income tax was withheld. So how much your employer took out of your paycheck and paid towards federal taxes. Here it just says this is your social security wages, so how much money they looked at to find your social security. Remember 6.2% of your income goes towards social security taxes. So you didn't remember there's a maximum taxable income for social security. You didn't meet that maximum taxable income, so your entire income was taxed, and 6.2% was that $789.94. Then over here is your Medicare wages. Remember, there's no max taxable income for Medicare. So they taxed all of your income again, and that was that 1.45% that went towards Medicare taxes, and that's that amount here. Here's some other things, just tips and things like that. Looks like here there's nothing listed. It's kind of a basic W-4, which most of them are going to look like. Really what we're concerned with though is your wages and tips and how much was held for federal income tax. So to complete this activity, we're going to have to use the W-2 forms for each of these people. We're going to have to make a 1040 form for each of them. It's different scenarios. We'll use their W-2 forms and the information about them to determine if they're going to have to pay more into taxes or if they're going to get some sort of return from taxes. So if we scroll down again, this is information we'll want to use. Again, we are going to do Melinda's together, so I'm leaving her W-2 open. Here is the 1040 form that we are going to use to complete. And I realize it's sometimes hard doing this virtually, but this is just the way we're going to have to do it. You really have two options here. If you have a printer and you want to print these out, that would definitely be fine. I think sometimes it's easier to write on paper when you're doing these, so we don't have to flash back and forth between screens. However, if you don't have a printer, that's just fine. You can do it right on here. I just would advise you to download this first so that you can save these as you go, because this is what you're going to have to submit to me as your activity, these filled in 1040 forms. But again, if you don't have a printer, that's fine. Make sure you download it, and then you can save it with your completed information. That's what you'll share with me. So here are some guidelines to help you for each step of the way for filling in your 1040 form. Again, I would have this up, I would have the W-2 form up, and I would have my 1040 form that I'm going to fill out. So let's go ahead and get started for filling out one for Melinda. So notice it starts at line 2A. So that means I think line 1 here is just personal information. So I'm going to come back up to Melinda here. And let's look at it. So first off for Melinda, it says filing status. Is she single, married, filing jointly, married, filing separately, head of household, or a qualifying widow? Well, if we look at Melinda, it says she's 18, she lives there with her parents, will be heading to college in the fall. So we're going to go ahead and assume here that she is not married, that she is single. So now we're just going to fill in her name. It says first name and middle initial. So we said it was Melinda. And if we look over here, we can look at our W-2 as well to find our middle initial. It's Melinda S. Flowers, and that's just right down here. So I'll come back to my form. Her middle initial is S, so last name is Flowers. And we got to put her social security number. So if I remember correctly, we don't really have listed their social security number. That's just right up here. They just tell us the first three numbers, so that's just what we'll put. We'll put 987 and then a bunch of X's. Again, this is on the top of the W-2 form. So again, we'll come down here, social security number 987, and then, oops, we said just XX, XX, XX. Okay, we'll just fill in that way. This part says if joint return, spouse's name. Well, there's no spouse's name, so we don't have to worry about anything here for the spouse. Then we got to put the home address. Again, this is going to be on the W-2. Make sure you don't look at the employer's address, but you got to look at Melinda's, which is down here. That's 456 Central Drive. So I'm going to go back to my 1040, and that's what I'm going to type in. City and town, 1046, or no, sorry, 456 Central Drive. It's a city and town. Oops, I put that on the wrong line there. My bad. I should have put it up here. Down here is where we have to put city and town. So for her, it's in San Diego, California, and the zip code was 92101. All right. If you notice over here, it's if you want to, if your spouse is filing jointly, you want $3 to go towards this fund. And if you or your spouse want to put $3 towards a presidential election campaign, something you can decide to do if you'd like. If not, I'm just going to keep going. It just says here if we are in a foreign country, put the name, but we're not in a foreign country or a foreign postal service, so we do not have to complete these lines. My screen kind of, there we go. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the standard deduction. So if you have someone to claim, you as a dependent or your spouse as a dependent, well, somebody for Melinda can claim her as a dependent, right? Because she is 18 and she's living at home. Again, just some more personal information here. If you have dependents, this is where you'd have to fill that out. If you were born before this date, if you're blind, or if your spouse is blind, you have to fill this stuff out. But again, we don't really have to worry about any of this. She's not blind and she's not born before 1955. She has no dependents, so this is all blank. We just had to click that someone can claim her as a dependent. So here's where we get into the actual 1040 part. So again, we're going to kind of look back and forth between our W-2 and kind of this list to help us. So if we look at number one, it says what are her wages, salaries, tips, etc. from her W-2. So if we look at her W-2, if we look at her wages, tips, and other compensation, that's in box one, that's $12,741. So that's what we're going to come over here and put in this box one, $12,741. All right. So two, if we look back at our sheet, it says for lines 2 through 7, assume 0 for each value. For most people, it would be 0 for each value if you have a more complicated tax return. If you have like dividends, which are just investments, or if you have pensions or things like that that you have to take into account, it might be a little bit more complicated. But for most of us, 2 through 7 are just going to be 0. Zeros in there. For line, or through 7B, is 0, I should say. Or 7B, sorry, says add lines 1, 2B, 3B, 4B, 4D, 5B, 6, 7A, and this is going to be your total income. So in other words, I just add everything that I put in so far. So I just have the 12,741 plus 0. So So just 12,741. Perfect. Line 8A. So let's look at our sheet here and see if it says anything about 8A. It says no adjustments to income. So for 8A, we're just going to come back and we're going to put 0. For 8B, it says subtract line 8A from 7B. Well, subtract line 8A from 7B, so take 0 from 12,741. That's still going to be 12,741. For 9, let's look back at our sheet and see what it says. For line 9, determine if the individual is or is not a dependent by reading who qualifies as a dependent. Well, we know they are a dependent, right, because they're living at home under their parents. It says, so if you are a dependent and line 7B is greater than $12,200, enter $12,200 into that line. If your dependent line 7B is less than this amount, then we got to do something else. Well, if we look at line 7B, 12,741. So she is a dependent and her line is greater than 12,200. So that means we're going to enter 12,200 into that line, into line A. For line 10, let's look. Assume no qualified business income deduction. So we're going to go ahead and put 0. For 11A, it says add lines 9 and 10. Well, 12,200 plus 0 is just going to be 12,200. Whoops. Taxable income, subtract line 11A from 8B. So 11A, we have to subtract from 8B. So this is what we call the taxable income. This is how much income they can tax you on, the federal government. So we take 12,741 minus 12,200, and it looks like we're going to get $541. That is her taxable income, how much money she's required to pay taxes on. That's the first page. So now we got to keep going. For 12A, if we go back over here, it says to find tax for 12A, refer to the tax table starting on page 62 of the 1040 instructions. So this is where we're going to have to open up another link. And we're going to have to go down to page 62. There we go. Starting on page 62. Oh, here it is. All right, so from this part, we are going to have to read some tables. So you got to think about what her taxable income was. So that number that we just had for box 11. So it's $541. So notice here, here's her taxable income. Here's for numbers under 1,000. Here's for numbers in 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. There's lots of tables there for you to look at. But her taxable income is just $541. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find what range she falls in, at least but less than. So $541 is more than 525 but less than 550, right? It's in this range here. She is single, so we got to look at this column of single people and we got to go over to this number here, which is 54. So this says your tax is 54. So that's what we're going to do is we're going to come back after we got that number from this table, and that's what we're going to fill into box 12A, 54. So we're running out of time here on this first video, so I'm going to go ahead and pause this video, then please open up the second one. That's when we'll finish completing this 1040.